service.
Recording is on.
Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone, to Sunday service. Welcome. I just want to remind everyone that you can watch again, or you can watch any Sunday services that perhaps you have missed by going to the Long Island Org Sunday Service channel, a YouTube channel that we have created. And how do you access this channel? You can go to, when you receive a notice via text or via email, to go to, let's say, the link to watch this week's Sunday service. You can there click on YouTube the word subscribe, and it will put you in that channel so you can find the previous Sunday services. So I think there is quite a bit of stuff to talk about today. And I want everything to really come into a logical sequence. And for this reason, I will start today's Sunday service with LRH's essay on personal integrity. Okay, so I'm going to start with that because I have kind of a logical sequence on how I would like to present the different readings we're going to do in today's Sunday service. All right, so let's listen to personal integrity.
What is true for you is what you have observed yourself. And when you lose that, you have lost everything. What is personal integrity? Personal integrity is knowing what you know. What you know is what you know. And to have the courage to know and say what you have observed. And that is integrity. And there is no other integrity. Of course, we can talk about honor, truth, nobility, all these things as esoteric terms. But they would all be covered very well if what we really observed was what we observed. That we took care to observe what we were observing. That we always observed to observe. And not necessarily maintaining a skeptical attitude, a critical attitude, or an open mind. Not necessarily maintaining these things at all. But certainly maintaining sufficient personal integrity and sufficient personal belief and confidence in self and courage that we can observe what we observe and say what we have observed. Nothing in Scientology is true for you unless you have observed it. And it is true according to your observation. That is all.
All right. So, do you guys see me or you see the video now?
You.
Okay, good. Thank you. So with that in mind, let's go and read The Game Called Man. People at large are not aware of a very interesting thing. They are not aware that anything can be done about anybody. The cop who gives you a ticket takes it in his normal stride that this is just the way it is. The hospital attendants who've picked the remains out of the drunken driving wreck, the very best thought in various professions that should have to do with this, are all agreed that there is nothing you can do about it. In other words, you have a cop down here and he is on the juvenile delinquent unit, and he goes around and he arrests them and he throws them in jail, and they get out of jail, and he throws them again, and he throws them in jail, and he gets them out of jail. And he says, after a while, they'll go to the big house, and then they'll serve 2 years, and they'll come out, and we'll put them back in, and then they'll come out, and we'll put them back in, and they'll come out. And that's the way this all is, and there's nothing can be done about it anyway. And he says, what's the use of arresting these car thieves? What's the use of arresting them? You just send them to jail, and they spend a year or so in jail, and they get out, and 24 hours after they get out. Why? They steal another car. There's nothing you can do about these people. They're crazy, and there's nothing you can do about the mind, and so it's all hopeless. So why should I have to be nice to anybody? Why should I have to be decent to anybody? It's just all a sorry mess, and there is no piece of string you could put out of it and start it getting unraveled. No place. That is the state of mind. Only he doesn't even know he is in this state of mind usually. Now, let's see how this barrier all by itself would influence a large society such as this. Here we have this remarkable thing, a computation that the only way to bring about law and order, or to bring about control or direction or even betterment, is by applying more restraint, more law, more handcuffs. And that is the computation. It is not a willful computation particularly. It is just the way it is all done. The more force we apply to the criminal, to the juvenile delinquent, to the stupid, the more force we apply to the student who will not study, the more stupidity, the less study, the more juvenile delinquency, the more crime. In other words, we're just adding to it. Add. Someplace along the line, some group has to take the responsibility over the turning the tide of this course of thought. And in view of the fact that we are dealing with thought and not with masses, we can do it. In view of the fact that we are dealing with the spiritual side of life and not its swords, it can be done. If we try to do it with a sword, we would still be doing the same thing that the society is doing. Control with handcuffs, jail cells, operations, electric shocks, duress, punishment, bad control, threat, fear. All of these things give us simply more deterioration. But we don't have to go along that line. We have found a singular fact, and that is that a small increase in freedom brings an increase in civilized attitude. Here is a great oddity, because the society at large doesn't believe this. If you increased somebody's freedom, you would increase the amount of trouble in the society. That is the way they would think about it. And that happens to be a lie. By increasing freedom, you increase trouble. By increasing freedom, you decrease trouble. That is the truth. Processing is another word for auditing, which is the form of spiritual counseling unique to Scientology. The auditor, from the Latin audire, to hear, one who listens, asks sets of questions called processes, which help the individual look at his own existence and improve his ability to confront what he is and where he is. Now, somebody comes up once in a while and he says, now, under processing, isn't it really true, now confidentially, isn't it really true that you uninhibit somebody? Uninhibit somebody. He is assuming that everybody is inhibited. That isn't particularly true either. He's assuming a whole bunch of irrational things, that they are big, black beasts that crouch just below the surface and thin veneer of the society, and these beasts at any moment are liable to bounce free. His level of belief in his fellow man could not be written and sent through the mails. But he believes that the second he would take off any restraint, we would find ourselves confronting a bunch of rather poorly behaved gorillas at the very, very best. If you make somebody freer, they immediately jump for the trees and begin to swing by their tails. It is a completely unjustified conclusion, because we discover that when a calm, permissive attitude is taken around a child who has been in bad condition, who has been upset, nervous, and so forth, that doesn't mean no control. People who have inherited from psychology the idea that the modern way to do with a child is just to leave them alone and let them run. No, that is not the way you raise children. You have to put a little bit of control on them and control them with certainty, or they get sick. Remember that. We take this child who has been nervous and upset, and we give this child a little bit greater freedom, a little more participation in the game. We consult with the child as to whether or not it is all right to go to the show. Sure enough, the child is liable to get kind of confused and disconcerted for a few days. Wonder what on earth is going to happen. Something is wrong, see? They will rattle around, and then all of a sudden they will say, no, there is a little reality about this. They really do want my opinion as to whether or not to go to the show. And all of a sudden, the kid settles down and becomes a civilized person. The way you make an uncivilized person is to deny him civilized conduct. If you assume his civilization and give him the freedom necessary to participate in the game called life, you guarantee his good behavior. How do you suppose we are ever going to get rid of a criminal population if at all times the criminal, on being released from prison, is then shunned by the society and never hired for anything? Where can he turn but more criminality? Similarly, the backward child has to study longer, has to sit there longer, has to work harder, has to grind harder in order to get any place. Less freedom, less freedom, less freedom. They actually get more and more stupid. They are dumb. So the thing to do with them is really pour the education to them. Give them examinations. Tell them that if they don't get A in arithmetic, Pop and Mom are going to feed them to the garbage man. In other words, threat and duress. Nobody ever assumes this child can know or do anything, and this attitude continues on throughout his life. Very few people assume anything good about him at all. Nobody assumes that he can do anything.
I can't hear you.
You cut out. Damien, you cut out.
Demi, go back to where it said nobody assumes.
Nobody
Tim,
ever assumes. Can you hear
you
me?
got cut out for a little bit.
I can hear now.
Yeah, you're
Nobody here assumes this child can know or do anything. And this attitude continues on throughout his life. Very few people assume anything good about him at all. Nobody assumes that he can do anything. And as long as this is the attitude of the society, look at the enormous danger poised before that individual's eye at all moments. Look at that danger. The danger is, if I really fit myself into this society, a society of people who believe I am stupid and incompetent, that I have to be taught everything 8 times, if I really fit myself in and cooperate with my fellows and do unto others the way I'd like to have them do unto me with the prevailing attitude, I would be the deadest duck I'd ever met. And I don't dare let myself get into a position where I'm in cooperation with my fellows. End of quote. If you had every player on a football field afraid to touch the ball, and every player bound and determined that the others were not going to touch the ball either, you would sure have some football game, wouldn't you? You would have 22 men out there and the ball sitting in the middle of the field, and these guys would be arguing with each other. Well, you're really not trustworthy to touch that ball. I don't know whether I want you on my team or not because of blah, blah. It would be a great game, wouldn't it? Did it ever strike you that life at large be as much fun on its broadest scale, in the fullest definition, as a nice football game? That there could be as much enthusiasm to even the small, mundane, ordinary things as there might possibly be to playing a very exhilarating game? It is almost far-fetched, isn't it, to think that talking to one's fellow man and engaging in cashing a check and doing this and doing that would be a continuous, exhilarating experience, even though it wasn't big and huge and dramatic. It isn't the amount of motion or action. It isn't the stake. It isn't the grandeur or the trappings that make a game. It is the willingness of those about us to play a game which makes a game. And then we lose sight of that. And I'll give that to you again. And when we lose sight of that, we lose the game. And life becomes a serious, onerous, arduous, dog-eat-dog endeavor. And the degree that people are unwilling to play the game in this society is measured by the number of handcuffs, the number of jails, the number of hospitals and institutions, and the number of laws. And it takes a few laws to make a game. You will always have to have some barriers and restrictions to make a game. But when you get too many, you get no game except this game. The game of making more laws that will make more laws necessary. And that is a game for attorneys, but not for citizens. Wherever we look then, we find people miserable or unhappy or believing that they could not possibly survive or have a good time. All we are looking at is a community which is composed in the majority of people who cannot play a game and will not let other people play one. A good civilization would be that civilization in which the individuals of which it was composed could play a game and knew they could play a game and were playing a game called culture. And if that attitude could exist, you would immediately, of course, have human rights, respect for one's fellows, and all these things would fall into line. But let me assure you of this. If everybody in such society were to believe that nothing could be done about it at all, let's say they weren't particularly apathetic about it, but they had simply been taught this as an educative datum, that there is no remedy for antisocial actions, that they all believed this, then you would have a guarantee that the situation would deteriorate. So that is our primary barrier. That is the primary thing we have to overcome with Scientology. Something can be done about it, not what can be done about it. That is up there too high. It is possible for something to occur that would put a person into better relations with life and his fellows. The society doesn't know that, has no inkling of it. Just because you know a lot of these things puts a responsibility on you. But just because you know Scientology is no reason or license to stop living. You should be able to live much more fully, but feel very free to use or not use exactly what you know. To use it as you think it ought to be used. To create the effect you want to create, or just to create a random effect. That is the wide license, isn't it? The material is yours. Go ahead and take it. Discover more about life by reading L. Ron Hubbard's book, Scientology, A New Slant on Life. Here you'll find more about life as a game, the 2 rules for happy living, and many other discoveries by L. Ron Hubbard that you can use to lead a better life right now. So, for me, this reading, it's so important and so appropriate at this point in time, and helps me have so many realizations about the responsibility that we have as individuals who have in our fingertips the LRH tech to really provide constructive games to others, to give them hope, to spread the message that something can be done about it, and then to create games in life and encourage those who are able in creating games to provide games to people to play, because somebody without a game, there is no much living in it. There is no interest about living, and without interest about living, then what do? You go down the spiral to lower and lower tones that lead to distraction of yourself and the people around you, in your environment. So how do you uplift these people? How do you bring them up? You uplift them, first of all, by helping them get rid of that fixed idea, perhaps, that that's the way it has to be, that nothing can be done about this, that nothing can change, and give them hope. And then you provide them with games or create those social circumstances that they can be provided with games. Your comments?
A lot to be gained from that. That was incredible. Just, the point of allowing people freedom, and that makes them more active participants in life, and that something can be done about it. It's just great hearing it again. Thank you. That really validates a lot of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any comments?
Well,
go
ahead, Mitch.
So I just got from it that, you have to be kind to people and involve them in games and in playing, and punishment isn't the way to do it. And our society is so bent on punishment, it's crazy, and we just got to change the games that everybody's playing, and we could have a much better society. Anyhow, that was my 2 cents.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Don?
I recognized something that occurred whereby I was trying to implement this for someone, but he was so surrounded with others who were basically just fixated on that's the way it is for him, and that's the way it is. And I realized that, I did try to persist, but the persistence wasn't great enough. So the knowing what you know as a Scientologist and persistence on something can be done about it, sometimes is the persistence that's needed in that to implement this and allow a person freedom and allow him to see things or perceive differently, because there are so many around that don't think that something can be done about it. So it just made me look at that particular incident and see how if I had persisted just a little bit more, it might have made more of a difference.
Awesome. It's amazing how you get these realizations, huh?
Yes.
So awesome. I was anybody else would like to share something?
What was the name of the reference again?
The name of the reference is called The Game Called Man. The Game Called Man, and it is on page 325 from the Minister's Handbook.
Cool.
Page
There are
320.
probably other places where that reference exists, but I'm not sure where.
Say that again, Wendy.
I said there are probably other places where that reference exists, but I'm not sure where.
Okay.
If you don't have the minister's handbook, the bridge might be able to help where you can find it.
Okay.
And I do have the minister's handbook. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, I might even include ahead of time in what I'm going to send you guys also the actual reference and the page and everything. So if anybody wants to follow those, some stuff I can put on the screen, but stuff that I read from here I can. As a matter of fact, I wanted to show you guys this, and I received this today in an email, and I thought it is so appropriate also to share in today's sermon. And it is this here. It's called Justice. And it says this. You guys should be able to see it. I'm going to make it even a little bigger. It says, the virtues of patriotism, loyalty, and devotion to the government are not dead by some strange social decay. They are dead because people feel their government no longer protects them, even attacks them, opens the door on them to easy psychiatric seizure, fantastic taxation, and personal insecurity. For instance, the black man in the US has long been saying he will not fight for the government. That isn't because he's a communist. It's because anyone can lay a charge on them, no matter how false, get a black man jailed, beaten up, lynched. And authorities shrugged with, it's just a coon. He had no equal respect under law. Any false report, untested, could get him arrested, beaten, or killed. So he became very insecure. And now he continually riots, loots, burns, is even closing universities, all because any false report was accepted. And he could be beaten or hung waiting on slow, expensive justice. It isn't limited to US blacks. This was true on all US minority groups and is true of religious and racial minority groups in far too many countries. So they form a core of resistance during unrest. They are nervous and defensive. Then, as the situation worsens, many social groups begin to react to false reports against them, again unable to obtain justice fast enough to prevent name damage. About that time, the officials better look to their foreign bank accounts and decamp. For that, government, even while still functioning, is no longer the government of its people. It is their enemy. Any revolutionary movement will be joined. These are the mechanics of revolution. People will stand for an awful lot. Then one day, patriotism is dead. Because the government no longer as a cause the majority believe in or will fight for. The principles of not accepting false reports and confronting one with his accusers and their accusations before punishing actions of any kind are so strong that if the West accepted them and scrupulously practices them, it would have a cause great enough to survive. It would then outcause the communists. As it stands, Western governments have to buy and bribe their defense at a cost so fantastic it will break them. Our position in this, we are standing up and befriending Western powers, trying to get them to pull up their honor and justice before the market gets to them and tears them to bits. L. Ron Hubbard, this is from the Freedom Magazine. Okay. Any comments, anything anybody would like to share about that?
Well, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very
Hey,
good.
you got an email? Where did it come from?
This email came to me from Charlie Wackley, Public Executive Secretary from the Church of Scientology, London. And it is from the Freedom Magazine. From the Freedom Magazine, and the essay is called Justice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it has no current application, of course.
Oh, my goodness. It's amazing. All right. One quick question before I ask you guys for any announcements. I want to find out, I see we have 11 signers on today's Sunday service. Do you have in the same room with you anybody else? Anybody but you? Is there anybody else listening to this with you?
Yeah, me and my dad.
Okay, fantastic. Anybody else has more than one people with them? Okay, good. Thank you. So we have 12 signers. Fantastic. So I'm going to go first to Mitch with any announcements.
Yes. We're working on the org reopening program, and I can't say exactly when the org is going to reopen, and it's going to be reopened, I guess, limitedly at first, and we'll be letting more and more people in, but I would estimate, I guess, less than a week, something like that. So, you can keep it in mind. Nothing's written in stone, and we have to follow management's direction. But, we're doing the steps that they want to get the place reopened. And, there's numerous phases. And we probably completed one section of it. Then, we certainly have more to do, but the org will be opening soon. And when we do open, it's going to be only for a certain number of people at a time. And, we're going to be practicing social distancing and, all the safety procedures. So, I'm looking forward to seeing some of you guys soon. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
yeah, we pretty much finished. I think, Leanne, we finished giving out the booklets. We finished that program last night. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Very well done.
Yeah, we're on.
Well done.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Also, Vito said you could add one person. he was listening to me.
Oh, fantastic. So 13. Okay, good. That's awesome. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Hey.
When announcements?
Well, we have OTC tomorrow at 6:30, and we will be going over what we as the public Scientologists can be doing to improve and expand Scientology. So please make sure you make that. It is again via GoToMeeting. And meanwhile, get on your extension courses, get your lessons turned in. Try to turn a lesson in today. Danielle's birthday is on Wednesday. Let's give her a big surprise with a lot of active people this week early so she can maybe take a day off and celebrate her birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very. So Danielle, you are on June 4th?
No,
June 10th.
Oh, June 10th.
Wednesday.
This coming Thursday. Ah, this coming
right.
Wednesday.
Right.
Okay, very
Let's
good.
make it a big week for her early in the week. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Very good. Okay. Wendy, anything else from you?
No, that's all I've got right now.
Okay.
Jamie, could I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. The lessons, the stuff you're studying, the stuff that I'm studying is totally amazing. I mean, it's given me a whole new level, a whole new reality on things. And I've done the basics. This is like, the ACCs are a must. They're beyond brilliant, and he brings it to a whole new level of understanding, which is amazing. My comprehension of Scientology has gone up dramatically, and believe me, I've done I was the first one to finish the basics on Long Island. So, I mean, it's just incredible, and you guys should get at it as soon as you can. You will be amazed, and you'll understand Scientology even more. You'll understand life even more than you do now, and you'll be amazed at the truth. What can I tell you? That's it. So do your lessons.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yes.
Mitch. So,
Dimitri, can I say something?
yes, absolutely. Welcome. Go ahead.
2 weeks ago, Dimitri quoted the definition of happiness, as those of you who are there will recall. And I came across it in the factors, which I'm listening to in Disc 5, page 118. I just wanted to quote something short right after that. First, I'll start in with the definition that Dimitri quoted. Happiness is the overcoming of obstacles toward a known goal. And then he says, all right, every successful man discovers this, by the way. He discovers it with horror.
Are other people having trouble hearing Mitch, or is it my connection?
Just speak up a little bit louder.
Okay? All right. Every successful man discovers this, by the way. He discovers it with horror. But the day he becomes something, he knows that those years of struggle, which he cursed, were themselves the adventure. The struggle was the adventure. The becoming something was not the adventure. I found that very interesting. And to me, it's the adventure of pursuing the bridge, and right now completing the basics is the adventure for me.
That is absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for sharing it. Thank you for sharing it. That's fantastic. Anybody else would like to say anything or share anything? Okay, so I know that today's Sunday service may be a little longer, but I really want it to be very meaningful at its greatest extent. And as I said, I have put together the sequence of what we experienced thus far in a thoughtful manner. So the last thing before we close with the Scientology prayer for total freedom, after we have listened to personal integrity, after we read the game called Man, and after we read about justice, I think at this point is very appropriate to just watch this little video on what is greatness. Here you go.
The hardest task one can have is to continue to love his fellows despite all reasons he should not. And the true sign of sanity and greatness is to so continue. For the one who can achieve this, there is abundant hope. For those who cannot, there is only sorrow, hatred, and despair. And these are not the things of which greatness or sanity or happiness are made. A primary trap is to succumb to invitations to hate. True greatness merely refuses to change in the face of bad actions against one. And a truly great person loves his fellows because he understands them. After all, they are all in the same trap. Some are oblivious of it. Some have gone mad because of it. Some act like those who betrayed them. But all are in the same trap. The generals, the street sweepers, the insane. They act the way they do because they are all subject to the same cruel pressures of this universe. Some of us are subject to those pressures and still go on doing our jobs. Others have long since succumbed and rage and torture and strike like the demented souls they are. We can at least understand the one fact that greatness does not stem from savage wars or being known. It stems from being true to one's own decency. From going on helping others, whatever they do or think or say, and despite all savage acts against one, to persevere without changing one's basic attitude toward man. To that degree, true greatness depends on total wisdom. Why should one change and begin to hate just because others have lost themselves and their own destinies are too cruel for them to face? The real lesson is to learn to love. He who would walk scatheless through his days must learn this. Never use what is done to one as a basis for hatred. Never desire revenge. It requires real strength to love man, and to love him despite all invitations to do otherwise, all provocations and all reasons why one should not. Happiness and strength endure only in the absence of hate. To hate alone is the road to disaster. To love is the road to strength. To love in spite of all is the secret of greatness. and may very well be the greatest secret in this universe.
All right. I know that the feature of the program, in order for you to hear the video in a higher quality, is for me to mute my microphone during the playing of the video. The problem is that some of you are not using a Chrome player, and without the Chrome player, you cannot hear anything on the video at all. Or if you are logging in just from a phone, sometimes some phones you cannot hear the video at all. That's why what I do is I unmute my mic during the time that the video plays, so those of you who do not have the Chrome configuration, you are still able to watch the video. So here we go with the Scientology prayer for total freedom. May the author of the universe enable all men to reach an understanding of their spiritual nature. May awareness and understanding of life expand so that all may come to know the author of the universe. And may others also reach this understanding, which brings total freedom. At this time, we think of those whose liberty is threatened, of those who have suffered imprisonment for their beliefs, of those who are enslaved or martyred, and for all those who are brutalized, trapped, or attacked. We pray that human rights will be preserved so that all people may believe and worship freely, so that freedom will once again be seen in our land. Freedom from war and poverty and want, freedom to be, freedom to do, and freedom to have. Freedom to use and understand man's potential, a potential that is God-given and God-like. And freedom to achieve that understanding and awareness that is total freedom. May God let it be so. So thank you all for attending Sunday service today. I would sincerely appreciate if you guys text me or email to me some feedback or a success story. I put these success stories in the promo pieces that I send out about the Sunday service. So I'd love to have your success story or feedback. So thank you all. Have a fantastic, productive, and creative week, and see you guys all next Sunday. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Dimi. That was awesome.
Thank you, Jimmy.
So cool, Dimi. Hey, Mitch.